This time I'll explain why it's okay in some matchups, or depending on your team setup, to change traits, sigils, and utilities. The runes should always be Olbrak. It's not even worth speaking of other rune sets for this build. Keep in mind, engineers are always prime targets during team fights, and you have to make these build variation decisions based on what your role is going to be in your team setup, and what your biggest threats are on the opposing team. I will give you all the information that you need to do so in this video. First, let's talk about utilities. Elixir Gun. It's the best option all around in all matchups, setups, and situations, like I've explained in my previous video. But in some scenarios, it's not bad to use different things. You can get the best out of your stats with this and the best out of your mechanics. It's more difficult to master, but it's more rewarding than the other options that you have. Slick Shoes. It can be okay to use instead of Elixir Gun if your team heavily lacks crowd control, and they need you to set up kills for them. Keep in mind that this switch will put you at a disadvantage in fights against high sustained builds, so you will need to adjust your playstyle accordingly. Try to play defensively until you force their stun breakers, and once you achieve that, you can go offensive safely whenever you have cooldowns to combo them. Slick Shoes makes it more forgiving on missing your crowd control abilities and using them efficiently. And the only downside to this is that you have to get way out of your positioning to make use of this skill in teamfights. It can also be okay to replace your Elixir Gun with Elixir S. The enemy team has a lot of bursts and you get focused a lot. Also, if your team lacks support and can't peel for you. If your team setup lacks stomping and rezzing abilities, it is also a good thing to have. Doing this will put you at a disadvantage in fights against high sustained builds, as well compared to Elixir Gun. You'll be slightly less efficient at dueling, especially. Secondly, let's talk about traits. You have three options here, and two different trait spreads. 60062 or 60044. You go 6 into Alchemy if you want Protection Injection, or you go 4 into the Tools if you want either Leg Mods or Power Wrench. Protection Injection is especially good if the enemy team is very bursty or has a lot of CC, and it allows you to keep your Elixir Gun against such teams. You do not need to go Elixir S if you choose to use this trait. Your team will have to do a good job at pressuring the enemy glass cannons though, if there is a lot of focus on you, or it can be extremely rough. If your team can achieve that, you should definitely use Elixir S. Leg Mods. It's great to use against team setups that have Necromancers, Engineers, Warriors, and Elementalists, in skirmishes like in teamfights. Those classes especially have a high amount of Cripple, Chill, and Immobilize. Pretty straightforward. You get CC'd less, so you can kite more and avoid more damage. Worth using over Protection Injection if your opponent is not that bursty. This trait is ridiculously good with Olbrak runes. Power Wrench offers you 10% higher damage on your toolkit stuff, but what this trait is really good for is the cooldown reduction. A bit more magnets, blocks, and pry bars. It's decent, but kind of unnecessary, because the cooldowns are already pretty low. I don't really recommend using it over Protection Injection or Leg Mods, since you give up some crucial survivability for it. And that's it for traits. Let's move on to the last topic, which is going to be sigils. You should always have battle sigils since the might stacking is so important for this build. And for the second sigil slot, you have two options, either Doom or Intelligence. It really just depends on your role, personal playstyle, and team setup. Yeah, let's go with Doom first. If you're going to be more of a duelist or a skirmisher than a team fighter, your opponent has mostly sustained builds, like a backpoint roll. You may think Doom is unnecessary if you run Elixir Gun, since you have extra poison on that kit, but it's really not. Intelligence is better if you are a team fighter to burst with guaranteed crits and set up kills with your team. You can still be okay at backpointing if your opponent's builds are not that sustaining. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you guys next time.